Coming up, the Last Frontier Honor Flight. Why it's much more than a trip to Washington, D.C.
I'm not trying to be a hero to anybody, man, but that's the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
A journey that brings the sacrifices of yesterday to the forefront.
Just to think of how much the people appreciated you.
Ahead, Honor Flight 2019. Why it's never too late to give thanks.
Alaska, where there are old triumphs, but also new frontiers, with challenges as great as the state itself, but a belief that the best is yet to come. Bringing you the faces, the places, and the spirit of the last frontier. This is Frontiers with Rhonda McBride.
Remembering, honoring, and sharing the stories of Alaska veterans on this Memorial Day weekend. Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Vigil in for Ron and McBride to bring you a special Frontiers edition today. Well, the Department of Veterans Affairs says more than 300 World War II veterans in the U.S. die each day. It's the mission of the Last Frontier Honor Flight to get World War II and other vets on a journey that takes them to Washington, D.C. to see war memorials built just for them before they pass on. And in the next 30 minutes, we revisit a recent honor flight here in town and, in their own words, hear what the effort has meant to those who served us all.
Right here.
Rose Gallier is proud to show her husband's name on the Mat-Su Veterans Wall of Honor in Wasilla. But for decades, World War II veteran Eldon Gallier questioned whether people around the country were proud of him.
He didn't believe people really appreciated him, the service, the Merchant Marine, and they were so put down like Vietnam veterans were after they came back.
But a retirement motorcycle ride 70 years after World War II ended would change Gallier in a very unexpected way.
We didn't know anything about the honor flight.
In 2012, retirees Ron Travis and his wife Lynda hopped on this motorcycle and rode to Washington State. They visited his mom at an assisted living facility and talked to a World War II veteran there who they knew.
Well, he just wanted to show Ron all these pictures, and he was so excited about it and said it was the best thing that ever happened to him.
The photos were from an honor flight the veteran was on.
And he just was so enthralled with the attention that they got.
And found out there was not an honor flight in Alaska. So, that little light bulb goes on and you go, somebody should do this.
That brief encounter led to the Last Frontier Honor Flight program. At 69 and 59 years old, retirement, if you will, was put on hold. The Travises worked to get nonprofit status. Ron says Lynda was key in raising money, from a golf tournament to raffles, even a luau. The very first Last Frontier Honor Flight went off in 2013. And since then, the Travises have helped about 250 veterans experience an honor flight.
Blew our right wing all up.
I heard you talk about jumping out of airplanes.
So many memories and strong bonds created, not just for vets, but the Travises too. Lynda recalls one trip where she stayed home.
I stood there and just blubbered. That was awful. Oh,
Like mom watching her kid go to
kindergarten. That's how I felt. Gosh, they're going without me.
Ron, whose dad fought in World War II, remembers a trip where a woman approached one of the Alaska World War II veterans.
She wanted to thank him because her parents were in Dachau and next on the list whenever we came and liberated them. And so happened the veteran was in the area and knew very much what she was talking about, and they both stood there and
cried.
Yeah, it was very emotional.
Thank you for your service and welcome to your memorial.
It's the kind of gratitude Eldon Gallier and Rose experienced during a 2014 honor flight to D.C. that KTVA was on.
This is for you.
Yeah, well, maybe it is. People have been great. Man, I never expected anything like this from the people.
Refreshing for Gallier. War was tough on him, as we saw at Arlington National Cemetery. He wouldn't leave the tour bus because all of those headstones, They brought back memories of losing many of his buddies when the enemy torpedoed and sank his ship in 1944, sending him onto a life raft.
When sharks were bumping it, trying to roll me off so that they could kill me bite by bite.
Thanks.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
But all the handshakes and applause on the trip muted some of those bad memories. Galeer didn't expect that. Or this, the big homecoming here in Anchorage. Just a few days in D.C., undoing decades of uncertainty for Galeer.
So many years has gone by, and I just took it for granted. My country forgot me. Now I know different.
He changed his mind. He felt like this country was standing for him.
Honoring and never forgetting our nation's veterans. It's what Ron and Lynda Travis have done for the last 7 years. Now, Rose Galeer salutes them.
Him and Linda and the whole team that was working with him, they brought this forward, and they let people know, hey, these are our heroes. These are the guys that kept us safe. Thank you. Thank you. 1,000 times thank you. From the wife of a veteran who so appreciated that trip.
It's all been good.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard to quit.
Ron and Lynda Travis say there has been one downside to Honor Flight, and that is all the funerals they have attended for Honor Flight veterans, including the service for Eldon Galeer in 2016. Mr. Galeer was 91 years old. Still to come, revisiting war to heal from war. A Korean War veteran in Palmer talks about how an Honor Flight trip sent some ghosts away, ghosts that have followed him around for decades. Welcome back, everyone, to our special Memorial Day edition of Frontiers. Well, he lived while his war buddy died. It's something that has haunted Korean War veteran James Clark for decades. Now, Clark lives at the Pioneer Home in Palmer, and as he explains it, it took a last frontier honor flight to set him free of those ghosts.
This was in, the early 50s, because that's boot camp.
Korean War veteran Jim Clark has a lot of pictures of his military service in his room at the Pioneer Home in Palmer.
And this is a picture that the last guy that interviewed me.
But you won't find any photos of his tour of duty in Korea in 1951 because he wasn't there very long.
About 2 to 3 weeks.
Clark says he was in a foxhole after engaging the enemy. In a lull, he was going to grab some smokes from troops in another foxhole, but he says the person with him in the foxhole said he would go.
I just saw him disappear from here down.
That foxhole was just a little farther than this door is to us. Clark says he lost his war buddy in a blast.
About lost my head. I guess I was bleeding from my eyes, nose, ears, and some shrapnel in my arm.
But alive.
That actually should have been me, but rather than me, he went.
Something that has haunted Jim Clark ever since, with nightmare after nightmare for years.
I just wake up seeing him standing there with those cigarettes from here down.
And it's not just seeing his friend.
And several times I'd end up on the floor looking for foxholes and things.
Clark tried to drown those bad dreams in booze.
I went through alcoholism and all kinds of stuff. And finally one day I says, hey, looking in a mirror in a bar, wondering what in the hell are you doing here? You got a wife and kids and good job, and all the time I'm ordering another drink.
Clark says he beat the booze, hasn't had a drink since the early 80s, but he still couldn't get over those dreams until 2017 when Clark toured the Korean War Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. as part of a Last Frontier honor flight. This is Clark and his daughter Tiffany at the memorial.
And she just wheeled me right up to it, and I just reached out and touched it and got it. I was just overwhelmed.
He had words for his friend.
To tell the guy how sorry I was or whatever, and that's what I was looking for. I just needed to tell him how I felt and what was happening.
Well, Clark was finally able to shed the ghost that followed him around for more than 60 years. From the time that you were there at the wall, reaching out, you have not had one single nightmare?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was just a feeling come over me for something like, there's no way to explain it.
It's a story Clark has mostly kept to himself all of this time, but says he's talking about it now to let people know how healing the honor flight was for him, and tips his hat to the outgoing organizers, Ron and Lynda Travis, for allowing him to take the trip of a lifetime that changed his life in so many ways.
I'm not trying to be a hero to anybody, man, and that, you know, but that's the greatest thing that ever happened to me, and it wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for Ron and Lynda.
And James Clark is in good company at the Pioneer Home in Palmer. In another room, not far from his, lives Vietnam veteran Dorothy Dittman. Now, she says honor flight changed her as well, made her think twice about her service to our country.
And then here they are in another angle.
Dorothy Dittman loves looking at her honor flight pictures.
This was some trip.
So memorable, she's working on a journal.
It was wonderful. I mean, just to think about it, it was good.
Tears because of the unexpected show of gratitude Dittman and other vets see from people they don't even know.
Just to think of how much the people appreciated you. and have been able to have been chosen to go on it.
Dittman is one of many honor flight veterans who have felt over the years that they didn't do enough while serving to warrant such a trip.
That was in 1973 when I went in.
During the Vietnam War, Dittman says she worked as a legal clerk at Fort Campbell in Kentucky. As part of her duties, she helped troops going to the hot zones in Vietnam fill out wills and other legal paperwork. She says it was heartbreaking to see Vietnam vets come home without arms and legs.
I'm just a little one, compared to the guys that were, put their life on the line. They really deserve, going on the honor flight.
But the gratitude along the way and support from those back home have made Dorothy Dittman realize that her service did matter to our country. Along with her photos, she has drawings and letters from little ones.
Thank you for your time and commitment keeping our country safe. Because you served, I can go to any parks. I am so thankful I get to go outside safely. I hope you have an amazing time in Washington, D.C. You deserve it. Love, Adrian, 2nd grade.
Children.
They're really pretty neat, the little ones.
Completely changing Dittman.
Well, I just took all this for granted. They really take it serious.
Sure.
They're little kids. April 12th, 2018. Dear veteran.
Alaska youth lifting the spirits of Alaska veterans. A fitting chapter in Dittman's journal.
Being in the service really is a special thing.
Now, Ron Travis with the Last Frontier Honor Flight says he hears from vets often who don't think that they're deserving of being on this trip. So he answers their concerns with a couple questions. 1, did you sign up to serve? The answer, he says, is always yes. And 2, would you have done all that you were asked? Travis says the answer he hears, again, is yes, saying that is good enough for honor flight. Still ahead, beyond World War II, the president of the Last Frontier Honor Flight program joins us next, why Randy Kimpton believes the honor flight still has a lot of work to do. Welcome back, everyone. Well, many of you supported the war effort by taking care of things back home while a spouse, a relative, or maybe a friend went off to fight. Same for an Eagle River couple, Ron Kane and his wife Teresa. Now, they both had a mission during the Vietnam War and both took the Last Frontier Honor Flight together. They were just kids when they got married. In 1961, Ronald Kane, 22 years old, and his wife Teresa, an Army medic at the time, 21. Only a couple months after being married, Ronald was off to Korea to train Korean soldiers on Army equipment. He then did a one-year tour of duty in Vietnam from 1967 to 1968, where Ronald says he served as a helicopter crew chief and door gunner.
I was up at a place called Quy Nhon when the Tet Offensive broke out in '68, and then we moved north from there up towards Da Nang.
The Tet Offensive was a series of surprise attacks by the Viet Cong on several South Vietnamese communities.
We got overrun, so that was kind of bad, and of course I lost some friends and stuff, but I was fortunate to come home. So.
I'm glad you're here. Thanks for your service. That was Ronald Kane's first tour of duty in Vietnam.
2 years later, I got orders to go back again. I did virtually the same thing, but then I gained a little more rank, and so I was platoon sergeant.
Teresa Kane held things together back home with 3 children.
Yeah, you're worried, but you got children. You got to keep stability in the family, not let the kids see how scared you were and everything. But we made it.
And nearly 50 years later, Ronald and Teresa Kane are recognized, along with 20 other Alaska veterans, on a last frontier honor flight trip to D.C. Here are pictures of the trip. They visited the Women's Memorial.
Because I've never seen that, and I've donated for that, and it's an opportunity for us.
And they were just at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall. Teresa calls it touching and sad, but both grateful to be on an honor flight.
Well, it's because what it represents and what people have gone through to get to where they're at today.
It's a real honor to go.
And when it comes to serving, it hasn't been an easy road for the couple.
But I would do it all over again. I would.
Joining us now is Randy Kimpton, the president of the Last Frontier Honor Flight, taking over for Ron Travis, who we saw a short time ago. Randy, first of all, thanks for being here.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Appreciate your time as well. The first thing I want to ask you is you've been on flights. We know that.
I have.
What is it about honor flight that you most love?
Oh, gosh. The reaction you get from the people when you bring a veteran in, to see the healing that can take place with a veteran when you actually get them there, get them around some similar veterans, give them a chance to relax and to talk, and things start coming out, and take them to see that memorial. It's an amazing experience, and to see how they're welcomed back as they should have been, but weren't. It's amazing things happen.
And we saw that in 2014 we went, so we saw all the hoopla at the airports. I mean, it was crazy and phenomenal, and I felt so happy for these men and women who were getting these welcomes every time they walked in an airport. But that always hasn't been the case. I mean, you've talked to me about some Vietnam veterans, and can you share that experience?
You bet. The second flight we went on, I had the honor of escorting a gentleman who had served in Korea and Vietnam both.
Okay.
And some of the things he did were just phenomenal. And all of our veterans do phenomenal things, whether it's at home or in the field. And he came back, and after several tours, he came through the airport in his uniform, and people actually spit on him. Not just one, but several people spit on him as he's coming through the airport.
Right.
It's kind of not our finest hour, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make up for some of that. Does it completely? No, obviously not. But by doing some of this, it kind of helps that out.
Sure, and again, we've seen it over and over. I know the story about Dorothy Dittman kind of touched a chord in you, if you will. Why so? What about her and her story kind of?
It relates to my father-in-law also, who was a World War II veteran. And when he came home, in the 39 years I knew the man, I think he talked about World War II 3 times. They came home, put it in a box, and never talked about it. Never felt, they just never got their welcome home. They never received gratitude for their service. to see what to see the reaction from Dorothy and that what she's doing now. She's putting together the journal of what from the kids and things like that. It's very touching. It's a wonderful opportunity to serve.
Well, we're proud to talk with Dorothy. I want to talk about the numbers of vets that Honor Flight has basically served, and we have some figures. If we can put those up, it's close to 300 in all. You can see the breakdown right here. I know that the World War II folks, and we talked about this earlier, you're trying to get those folks on before they pass. I mean, it's kind of a sad reality, but that's what you're trying to do. Are you still kind of in that direction, or where are you heading with who you want to get on these flights? Absolutely. We are, the main focus is World War II and Alaska Territorial Guard. We desperately are trying to find them. They're out there still. We still have some left. A lot of our population, when they reach a certain age, seem to migrate to warmer climes. Sure. And so our population as World War II vets is a little slimmer, but then again, as we talked earlier, some of our World War II vets are pretty tough, and they stay. And so we do have a contingency of those left here in the state. But yeah, it's World War II, Alaska Territorial Guard, and then Korea, Vietnam, in that order. Okay, and let me talk about, if I can, some pictures that Donna Poole shot, a photographer on Honor Flight. If we can show some of those, and maybe, Randy, if you can kind of react to some of the things you're seeing here. This is at the World War II Memorial. This was amazing because we had the opportunity to go into the World War II Memorial with the Honor Flight hub from New Mexico. And that was quite an experience to have that, and have these gentlemen get to meet another hub from another part of the country. Just amazing people. James Brandon, he is our Territorial Guard. Some amazing stories behind that. He joined his Territorial Guard, went Army, and then ended up in Marine. He said he thought perhaps alcohol had been involved when he made that transition. Sure. But he's a wonderful man. Right. And some amazing stories. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I talked to him as well. And we're kind of getting shorter on the time, but real quick, if people want to donate, want to help out, can they find you guys pretty much anywhere? Last Frontier Honor Flight. There it is. Pick, click, live, check. Sure, you bet. We'll take it. PayPal's on there also. And we're around town. We're at the VFW. We're at the American Legion. Sure. But anything and everything helps. It's not cheap to send these guys back. It doesn't cost. We don't charge them a dime. Right. Not a single dime for veterans. Well, good for them. I'm glad they go on it. I'm glad they can reminisce about things. Well, that's it actually for this Memorial Day edition of Frontiers. We want to thank Randy Kimpton for coming in. We want to thank all of you who served. Thank you. And of course, we are thinking about those who have served and died for our country. Again, that's it for Frontiers today. Thank you so much for watching. That I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies to wide with foam. God bless